Welcome back to the Wildboro podcast. And I'm back inside the dome with Peter this time.
Hey, Rich.
Peter, thanks for doing this.
Of course.
I think you have an interesting story, and I think there's a lot that I haven't heard before. So I'm interested to hear how you got to where you're at now. We met at the Mojave Center, common theme with everyone who's been on the show so far. This was back in February, so not that long ago. And you've turned into a really critical part of the project here. You had a paid position during the last workshop. Since we had two domes going on, Jared hired you to basically be his assistant or partner up on the dome. And you've been doing an awesome job, and I feel great, and I'm just feel very thankful that you're helping to build my house in such a caring and loving way.
Thanks. I'm just doing something I enjoy, and seems to be rewarding for everyone involved.
Yeah. So I love seeing how much fun you're having out there. And again, with everyone, ending up at these super Adobe builds doesn't just happen. There's usually a journey and a process and some intentional and difficult decisions. So I want to hear how you ended up out here. And let's start with you worked in the aerospace industry for a while. Can you tell us how you got into engineering and maybe what your college experience was like and what you did right after you graduated, if you want to start there?
Yeah, I was raised by an engineer, and so that was always just in the blood. It seemed, I didn't really have to debate too much about what I was going to do for college or whether that was in the cards or not. So went for the engineering degree, did the 4 years, did internships every summer, gaining new skills and experience, and wound up working at one of the companies that I interned for and spent 3 years with them. And from there, and that was a Northrop Grumman company, aerospace, satellite technology, and deployables. And that was all using my mechanical engineering degree, what I'd learned throughout all that process. And then I was able to, I got a great opportunity in Denver to work at a very similar company, but much smaller scale, which is a lot more enjoyable than just being a part of a big company that's really just trying to meet a bottom line. So I felt like I was really cared about there and honestly checked all the boxes that I was missing at the other company. And somehow that wasn't enough. There's always a goal that I was trying to reach, and once I reached those goals, there was always the question, like, does that do it? Is that answer all the check boxes I've been looking for? And it's just hard to really explain everything that went on there, but at some point it was the end of the journey there.
What were those goals that you're talking about? Were those professional goals or just like personal fulfillment? Or
mostly personal fulfillment. Professional wise, I didn't want to be anywhere in the company. I didn't want to be anything. There was no specific thing that I wanted, but having a certain number in the bank account is a pretty easy goal to have, to comprehend. And then you hit that number and you're like, well, what happens next?
Yeah. So you were still in Denver at the time, and was this you said about three or so years after college, or?
That's when I started in Denver. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Pretty much 3 years on the dot.
Mm. So you eventually transitioned to van life. Was this a long process for you, or how did that come about?
It kind of was a long time coming, but never something I really planned on doing. I didn't really see it in my future, but it made sense when it happened. I mean, I grew up not on a boat, but my dad had a boat, and we would take that out to the Channel Islands and live on it for a week at a time. And I compare that to van life a lot. It's just there's a lot smoother waves on Earth rather than the water. So it just kind of made sense once I was in the van. I guess that's also in the blood too. But it kind of happened suddenly. I'd been toying with camping out of my truck, and I had gone on 2-week trips where I would just sleep in the back of my truck for most of the time. And I wanted to build a camper in my truck, and ultimately decided I can just get in the van and go. And once you decide that, the right one just kind of pops up. You find it, and bought the van, quit my job, basically the same couple weeks, and took off.
Yeah. How long had you been thinking about doing that before you actually left your job? Was it like a couple of years, or?
It's hard to say. I mean, thinking about living in a van specifically, that was something I had seen on Instagram and stuff like that, though I'd never really met anybody who had done it. But it's just a lot of factors that pop up as I think about why I was doing that. But I had been slowly inching my way into that territory, just with the truck, and just serendipitously, really. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't planned.
Yeah. That's a big life change. To me, there's always some aspect of like saying goodbye, maybe to like your former life or what was familiar. Going to the office every day, seeing the same people. Did you go through that kind of a process? I mean, what was the? Did you start at some point to feel like a disconnect, with your coworkers and stuff, who obviously, most of them were probably, not about to quit their job and go in a van. I mean,
I don't know. There was never any stability, really, in all of it. So it's not like I was saying goodbye to anything specific, except for just saying goodbye to that journey that I was already on, that was always changing, and that had really fulfilled its purpose in my life.
What was the reaction of your family and friends? It sounds like maybe was your family somewhat receptive to it, given your experiences during your childhood?
Right. Like, it was accepted.
Yeah.
It wasn't really questioned too much, except, are you sure you're making the right decision? Which is a valid question.
Yeah.
It's if I'm going to do that stuff, I should be confident in what I'm doing, or at least when somebody asks me that question, I shouldn't be faltering, being like, oh, maybe it's a bad idea, right? It's like you got to be able to justify it one way or the other. So it didn't seem like there was any backlash, and not that I really cared at that point. It's like anyone else's opinion was irrelevant, and I couldn't even take it into account.
Yeah. And it sounds like you had a place of financial stability. This is something that's kind of a recurring theme. It seems like it's almost a prerequisite to doing something like that. So I don't know. Did you feel like you could always fall back on your engineering degree again if this didn't work out, or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It felt like whatever happens, I'd have some kind of fallback.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's a huge change. I mean, there must have been a moment where you just got in the van and took off. I mean, what was that like, and where did you go first?
There was that moment, yeah. I mean, I bought the van just before Christmas. So the first step was drive it down to the parents' house, and we had everyone together for Christmas that year. And that was the inaugural journey, and then drove it back up to Denver to fully move out of the house and wrap everything up. And from there, it was winter. So specifically, the end of January was when I finally left Denver, cleared out the lease and everything like that. So I just wasn't going to be hanging around too many parts of the U.S. in the van. It's too
Right.
cold, and that's not my thing. I grew up on the coast of California.
Okay.
Denver was even too cold, too long of winters for me. So
Yeah.
I went to Grandma's house in Reno and
Nice.
spent some time with her for 2 or 3 months, and you know, that's an opportunity I didn't think I'd really ever get, just
Yeah.
to spend that much time with my grandma, who I love,
Yeah.
and who I learned a lot from in that time of living with her. And then that process has been kind of just been happening over and over everywhere I go. I just learn how to appreciate what's available there and come out of it a new person.
Yeah. I mean, what did you have goals at the time? I mean, what were you looking to get out of the van life experience that, like, your previous situation wasn't giving you?
Come back to self-fulfillment or meaning of life or purpose, the things that were lacking in the job, and really just the way of life that necessitated. It just didn't seem like any of that was available in that way of life. And I don't even know what I was looking for. I just knew something was wrong, something was missing, something needed to change, and I was willing to just go out into the unknown and see what that ultimately was.
Yeah. Did you have much of a set itinerary, or did it just sort of unfold? You let it unfold on its own?
Yeah, no set itinerary at all. I mean, I had a list of like Google Maps pins, essentially, of places I'd love to go, and I had something in basically every state.
Yeah.
So all those options are lots to explore.
Yeah. So you've kind of mentioned to me that you ended up basically traveling all over the country. I guess, can you maybe give us some highlights from your trip? I mean, what happened after you left your grandmother's house?
Oh, after Grandma's house, it finally warmed up enough to go to Park City, and I spent 9 days there in the van, and took a couple weeks actually getting there from Reno, going down through Death Valley and around Vegas. Not going to touch Vegas. Then through St. George and Utah and up to Park City, where I was, just going day by day, finding a new spot every day.
Was it difficult to be out on your own? I mean, did you have moments of uncertainty and doubt and like, hey, is this really the right thing for me to be doing?
I wouldn't say I'd so much had moments as I just existed within uncertainty and doubt.
Yeah, wow.
And just had to do everything moment by moment. So I had moments of clarity where I finally pulled up to a parking spot. I'm like, okay, I can sleep here for tonight. If I even felt that. So it's like, you don't even know where you're going to lay your head for the night, or if you're going to be accepted there, if there's going to be a tow truck in the morning or 2 a.m. or whatnot, and then where you're going to do the basic necessities of life, and like where you're going to get water and food and go to the bathroom.
Yeah. Did you feel like you were starting to get out of the experience what you were hoping for? I mean, did you start to notice any personal changes now that you're not going into the office every day? You have more time to kind of think and, basically uninhibited freedom. Nobody telling you what to do every day.
Right. What was I looking for, though? I don't really know what I was looking for except to stop wanting, I guess. So just whatever I happened to want, I would just go see if I could do it.
Yeah.
And from that, understand whether it was worth doing or not, or whatever the case, whether I still wanted that. And typically it was just like, okay, I got to experience that.
Yeah.
And now I can see what's next. And it was very just slapstick, off the cuff.
Yeah.
Whatever happens, happens. And at certain points during the travels, I was just like, I'm done traveling. I don't really care to tour the world and just see all these things on my own, and which is obviously a privilege because there was a time where I was desperate to see everything that I could see, and now I've seen so much that I'm like, okay, I need to do something with that, or I want to do something like that, and that came back to just relating with people and reconnecting with people who will appreciate what I've been through, or people who I can appreciate what they've been through, and sharing all that. Doing it alone without sharing just felt like a waste of time.
Yeah, I was going to ask, were you finding community out on the road? I know there's maybe some ways for van life people to meet up, or were you mostly by yourself? And then how did you ultimately find that community?
Yeah, almost entirely by myself the whole time. And I'd meet people along the way that you have little interactions, and some longer than others, but ultimately you're still moving day by day.
Yeah.
So I never found anywhere that I would stay. I guess that's one thing I was looking for, was some place that would compel me to remain. And that didn't come, or I just wasn't seeing it, or wasn't in that mindset. And so I was just going place to place on my own and continuing that process of just trying to integrate what I see into what I think I am.
Yeah. I think it's really cool that it just sounded like you were totally living in the present moment by moment without a long-term plan. And that's something I personally struggle with. I think we're kind of trained to, have a 5-year plan, have a retirement plan and all that stuff. And you just totally hit the road with no plan. And it sounds like it pretty much ends up working out.
Yeah, that's something I learned
Yeah.
along the way that I'm very grateful to have learned. But I think it's something I wanted to learn but didn't know that I wanted to. Just how to not be controlled by those ideas of what I should be, where I should be, or how I should be, and just learn what it means to just be. And you can't really learn that except through experience, I don't think.
Yeah. So how long did your road trip last? And did you go to every state, or you ended up going all over the country? Am I correct?
Did a whole loop of the country. I didn't really care to go to every state. It's I've seen people do that before. Like, that's, you could say, played out or whatever, but I went to a lot of them, and enough, more than enough, you could say. But there were a couple different trips I took. Like, the first big one was just this last year in 2024, where I did an 8-month round trip of the whole U.S.
Wow.
Started in Arizona and swung around the southern coast through Texas, and just hitting all the spots I either wanted to see or wanted to see again, or just whatever crossed my mind, and usually just compelled by wanting to get something to eat. And, that keeps it kind of simple too. But just seeing if I could do it and seeing where that takes me.
Yeah. You mentioned ultimately you wanted to share the experience with other people. Has that manifested for you, or how did that manifest?
It just seems automatic. Like, what I've seen and how it has changed me makes me what I am right now. And I can't really try to understand that except by just being what I am. And I don't want to be what I am alone. I don't even think you can be, really. It's like you experience yourself through relation with others, and then they experience what you are as well. And so it just kind of happens. All I needed to do is just meet people that I actually wanted to be around. And I'd met a lot of people that I either didn't want to be around or it wasn't driving me. So then I just go on to the next thing, and it's just a process.
Did that search for community lead you to the Mojave Center, or what ultimately led you to go out there?
Yeah, definitely led me to the Mojave Center. Just seeing people going through there and being inspired by what they're doing, at least just thinking it's interesting and different and answers a lot of questions that I seem to have, struggles that I seem to have about doing what is expected of me that everyone seems to be doing, or that at least most people seem to be doing. And so I wanted to meet the people that were getting involved with the Mojave Center, essentially. And the first time I went to try to join that community essentially was like the day after my high school reunion. So it was a very interesting contrast, you know, meeting back up with people you hadn't seen in 10 years, some people you had. But even so, it's like you're a different person in the context of meeting people or just seeing people again. You re-experience yourself through them, and that comes with a certain feeling. And then the next day I'm at this random spot in the middle of nowhere and meeting people who also drove all the way out to the middle of nowhere for some reason.
Yeah.
Figuring out what that reason is, it felt really good.
And this was at their first location?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you take a workshop there, or what did you actually do?
They had a New Year's Eve, New Year's party, and I had seen the old videos that they had of their Halloween parties or something, and lightsabers and Jedi robes. So that's enticed me from a past life. But thought it would be fun to go out there and just see what's going on.
Yeah.
And it was kind of on the way of the direction I was going.
Gotcha.
To, which of course makes it easier to make that decision. So I figured I'll just go for it and see what happens.
Yeah. When I showed up there, I met a lot of other people who had been on like a solo journey themselves. And that's kind of how I felt before I showed up at the Mojave Center. And it was like all these people taking this big leap of faith. It all led them to the same place. And now I was surrounded by other people who, similar to you, had left kind of a more typical lifestyle and taken a big risk. So I felt very reassured and validated. Did you feel like you were starting to find the community of people that you wanted to be a part of?
Yeah, it was a similar feeling that that I guess you could say realization, or just experientially finding out that there are other people that will make the same decisions as you, or not, but in their own way too. Right. But people that won't wonder how insane you are for going against the grain, essentially. Yeah.
We're all crazy in the same way.
Similar enough ways, and they complement each other too.
Yeah. So I've been very grateful to the Mojave Center because it just seems to be a gathering point for people like that. And I've just benefited hugely by going there and meeting people. You sitting here, we wouldn't have met each other without Ian and Nicolette, so huge shout out to them. So that was, I guess, a bit of time ago, maybe a year or a couple of years ago that you were out there.
Yeah.
What did you do after you left there?
Just continued on. What did I do? I think I went back up to Reno and spent some time with Grandma there. And then, that was 2024, I guess. Yeah, beginning of 2024, and went back to my parents' house after that. And once Texas warmed up, I started my cross-country trip. And there were like long-term goals of places I was going to, like seeing family along the way,
Yeah.
and family friends, and just few and far between. So I just took a couple months at a time going in between these places, and wanted to see, just the idea of just leaving where you're at with no intention of returning, and seeing what happens.
Yeah.
Because there's always been the stress of like, oh, I have to get back, so I either have to enjoy this, or you're always thinking about the next step. So I wanted to see where my brain goes when there's no next step.
When you put yourself out into the unknown like that, I think that's when some of the most interesting or like fortuitous things can happen. What ended up happening on your trip, and if it was a positive experience? I mean, what are some of the highlights or most meaningful things that you got out of that?
What happened during that trip? During 8 months of my life, where I was moving every day or two. I mean, what happened was what you're saying. It's like these serendipities, and just living in the moment with no expectations. I was able to see how my awareness of being present just changed situations, or changed how I interact. So my interactions, the way that I saw myself being, changed just dramatically as I just allowed that to unfold. And I guess what happened is that I left myself behind and was able to experience so many different things that I could just be a brand new person pretty much every day if I wanted, but I wasn't like trying to be anything. So just letting that happen, and letting go of the expectations.
It sounds really liberating. I don't know how that felt for you.
Honestly, me neither. Because it's like I can maybe compare it to how I felt when I was younger or something, but it was stressful, I guess you could say, but also I could have no stress because I just knew at a certain point I would just have to figure it out once I get there. So there was nothing necessarily to rely upon, but there also was nothing to hope to rely upon, because once I learned to trust that I could be safe and not need anything, then I could just be there. And then you just figure out how to do things moment by moment.
Yeah. I found that there are people and things around us all the time that want to help us and can help us on our journeys. And it's really only when I feel like it's really only when I'm in the moment and I am totally present. That's when I actually recognize all these opportunities that are already around me.
Right. Yeah, that there's a resistance that is kind of eliminated when you are open to those things. And then you can actually see, like, oh, someone's trying to help me, not trying to hinder me from being this thing I expected myself to be that I never even really wanted to be.
So that sounds like a pretty meaningful or transformational experience for you. And you said that was like about an 8-month road trip. I mean, you're still in your van. I guess the journey is ongoing for you. I don't know. Were you starting to maybe get clarity about a certain direction in your life, or are you still kind of focusing on being present in the moment?
Yeah, it's more so just being present in the moment. And there's aspirations and dreams, and hopes that still seem to exist, but they don't necessarily come into focus, or they aren't coming into focus. They're more just spreading out and becoming part of a bigger picture. And I don't think I need to know where I'm going or even what I want.
Yeah.
But the wanting, there's still something that I want.
Yeah.
At least it pops up. So I can just sit there in silence and realize, oh, I don't want anything. And that is a little uncomfortable too, because I'm used to wanting things. I'm used to feeling that need to have some kind of goal, like, oh, I'm working towards getting this car or this house or, you know, being this type of person. And once that's gone, all I really want is, well, like my stomach grumbles. So then I get hungry. So I'm like, okay, I guess I want food right now.
Yeah.
And learning to just feel that and accept that certain times, oh, I just don't want food right now, or, you know, which is, you know, the most basic of desires besides maybe water or air if you stop breathing. But it's just a totally different perspective than I was used to growing up in what I considered to be normal America, or normal United States of America, at least.
I think it's just such an awesome mindset and like a way to be, because this planet is so beautiful, and I think when we're focused on the future all the time or rushing from one thing to the next, you know, it's like every day only comes around one time, and there's always some new and interesting and beautiful aspect of just nature and all these amazing people out there to interact with. And so it sounds to me like that's kind of what you've been able to experience for a significant period of time at this point.
Absolutely. And that desire to see those things as well, because I was very compelled by all the beauty in the planet. I remember, you know, Planet Earth was a very awakening experience, just watching that, those documentaries, and knowing or feeling like you know what's out there, and you just got to go see it.
Yeah.
And so then I felt like that was very compelling to me, and I went and saw all those things and came away not with, oh, everybody should go do that, but more so came away with the understanding that that type of beauty it's about perspective, and it really exists wherever you are. And you don't have to put in all this effort to get yourself somewhere so that you can experience that. But you can just be where you are and find all the beauty that you want to find there, really.
Yeah, you know, one of my favorite songs is "As" by Stevie Wonder, and they have this line where like acceptance is the only way you have to pay for love, and so to your point, you know, if you have that mindset, you're going to see a lot of beautiful things and experience what we're meant to, which is that this can be a beautiful experience. It can and it should be.
If you want it to be.
If you want it to.
It will be.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just something I learned firsthand.
Yeah, and that's awesome. And you know, you put the effort in to make that happen. We've been talking about this last couple of days, like what's the meaning of life, and a day I think was saying, you know, to try, to try to be happy, and it does take work, and you do have to try, and you do have to go on these journeys where you don't know where you're sleeping and all this stuff, and like, you've been putting the hard work in, and I'm glad that you've been able to also reap the rewards from that. And I can't think of a more worthy thing to put work into than being happy.
Agreed.
So let's talk about maybe how we met. I mean, how did you end up back at the Mojave Center in their new location?
It was serendipitous since I had been watching them on Instagram, and I was halfway across the country when I realized they had bought a property just next to Tucson, which is where my parents live, where I went to college. It's one of the only cities I could see myself spending more time in, frankly, and that's something that does come into clearer view traveling the whole country and looking at every city and saying, will I spend time here? And realizing that they're all, well, so unique and so worth just putting everything into, and then whether I would do that or not became a question. And Tucson's familiar, and so it's a place I wanted to return to, and then here they are back at Tucson. I had a great time, a few days spending with them at the original Mojave Center, so I looked forward to seeing them again and getting involved in the building process, which there's a lot of reasons why that felt like a good thing, but ultimately it just felt like the right thing for me to do, and didn't know when I would do that. But at a certain point, I just said, "All right, here's a workshop availability. I'm done doing whatever I'm doing, whatever the heck that was," and said, I'll just drive over there and see what's gonna happen."
Yeah.
And it was just unexplainable or unexpected too. It's like I couldn't have planned it even close to. I couldn't have planned anything that happened the way that it happened there. Which most of it was just seeing people come together, getting to experience new people. I mean, I probably met more people in that 1 week than I had through the entire 8 months of driving around the country.
Oh.
At least more people that I was interested in continuing a relationship with. Yeah. And then just getting to put your energy into something that inspires you and that you believe in and that seems worthwhile to continue into the future, something sustainable. It is rather unexplainable, though, but just felt like the right thing to do.
Yeah. What was it like for you doing a workshop there? Because you previously had only been at the party. For those who don't know, these workshop styles are kind of run as like a camp, I would say. Everyone's camping out. It's pretty rustic living conditions. You're working at a pretty difficult job, which is super Adobe. There's a lot of manual labor involved, and then there's a lot of social time with people. So at least at my workshop there, I formed very close bonds with the other workshop participants. Can you talk about your experience with that?
Well, yeah, there's a lot involved in that, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But I was looking forward to using my body and doing something physical and sharing in that with other people and pushing my limits and inspiring everyone else to push theirs too, because I just know that we are just so powerful as just what we are. It's so much more than any of us even know, but you can't really experience that unless you try to jump higher than you've ever jumped before. Yeah. Even if you know that there's people out there that can jump higher than that.
Mm-hmm.
Which those people all just act as inspiration anyways.
Yeah.
But that was part of the goal going into it, I suppose. If the goal was just some kind of aim I felt like I needed to have in order to convince myself to do it, there are probably some other goals that I didn't know that I had that subconsciously I believed I would achieve by going through that experience. So I mean, every single day of that was this unique, like, I don't know how to explain it really, like perfection of just combination of factors that made every day just so inspirational. So that's all that I don't know.
Yeah.
All that pops off the top of my head.
Yeah. And just my observation has been you've really taken to the Super Adobe building process. Did you expect that to happen? And have you done any type of building or working with your hands in the past?
There might have been some kind of expectation that this could go somewhere, because I believe myself that I can achieve anything that I set out to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's just a good belief to have.
Yeah.
But there was no reason that I should have thought that Super Adobe would be, or even construction in general, would be something I would be doing as a way of life.
Yeah. So you ended up staying there, I know, beyond the workshop. Again, the Mojave Center, they typically have a paid workshop where you're building the dome, and then they have volunteer days where it's more the finishing work and plastering and doing the floors and all that. My impression was you really got hands-on experience with a lot of different aspects of the finishing work. What was that experience like? And I mean, did it inspire you to maybe try to build your own one day, or are you kind of just in it for the experience at this point?
Just in it for the experience. And
Yeah.
if I build my own, it's kind of the same deal.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I want to live somewhere.
Yeah.
And I like these houses. I like the way that they look. I like the way they feel. I like the way that we build them. And just the handcrafted creativity that goes into it as well, because we are inherently creative. Most people desire to be creative, is what I've found.
Mm-hmm.
And to be able to be creative by building the structure that you live in, you know, if you believe you need to live in a structure, then why would you not try to make it yourself?
Yeah.
And make it your own too. And it just doesn't make sense to do it any other way.
Yeah. That's really cool. I'm just thinking about this skylight that we made and just the amount of love and care and attention that went into this this wooden structure that goes on top of the earth bags, and then the glass is glued to that. I mean, we were just talking like that required us to go over to a neighbor's house. Shout out to Tom, and that turned into like this big community dinner over there, and I was just able to see you and Ade and Tom put so much pride and craftsmanship into just this one little thing. And to your point, you know, that's really putting a human imprint on this house and this structure. And I think, you know, if and when, not if, but when I'm living in here, I just feel like I'm going to be surrounded by the handprints of all these different people who have contributed to this project. And, you know, I agree with you. I think everybody should live in a structure and be surrounded in you know, with love and expressed in a physical object like that.
Yeah, that's the thing. These aren't perfection structures.
Yeah.
Every little crease and fold adds character and uniqueness, but also it all tells a story. It all has a memory to it, and that means a lot to me, at least. And I can see that it means a lot to you.
Yeah. You know, human beings are not meant to be perfect, and these are handmade structures, so they won't be perfect. But to your point, they feel more human and comfortable. So
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not like normal houses are perfect,
mm-hmm.
but they are. It's a little harder to find imperfections, I guess. But big flat blank walls
Yeah.
nothing's perfect, but they're just not interesting either.
That brings us pretty close to the present day. I guess how we ended up here was somewhat of a humorous story. I organize these workshops. I never know exactly who's going to be here or when, and you had indicated that you would be coming, and I didn't know when, and we were like maybe one or two people short on the first day, and we're all kind of hanging out the night before, and all of a sudden Peter pops his head in the tent, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm here for the whole thing," and I was just like, it was very grateful for that, and it was a nice surprise.
Yeah. Well, I do like surprises, I guess. So it's hard to put you through a little bit of stress, though.
No, learning to trust the uncertainty as you have.
Right.
That workshop just went really well, and again, it was just certain people. Shout out to Carrot, who I don't think you've met. Some people really seem to take to the whole process, and I felt like I was kind of seeing that happen with you. And then after that, you went out with Jared and Tom, and my sense was you were a pretty key person on their build out in Joshua Tree. I hope I'm characterizing that the right way.
Yeah. No, sounds right.
And again, you came back here, and now you're a paid part of the work crew. And like I said, I'm just so happy that you were the person, really running things up there. I was happy to see you having fun and becoming a teacher and really running the show up there. It was amazing to me that this is like 2 months after, you took your first Super Adobe workshop.
Right. Yeah. But it feels like no effort on my part.
Yeah.
Honestly, I gain energy by going through this hard work, and I don't know why, but it just kind of feels like right place, right time type situation.
Yeah.
Like I'm not trying to get anything out of it.
Yeah.
I'm just doing what I enjoy, and I know that sitting around doing nothing isn't enjoyable either.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not like trying to get away from that either.
Yeah.
It's just right place, right time, really.
Yeah, I just really respect how it seems like you're just not trying to force anything in your life. Yet here you are, and it seems like you've had so many amazing experiences just in the last 2 months since I've known you.
I'd say so. Yeah. Yeah. The last several months have been life defining, life changing, and just so much growth. It's like just going through that, I realize that how much more is possible too, and understanding that makes me want to have even fewer plans, because it's like, how can I make plans based on how little I know? So I'll just make plans that make sense, I suppose, but only as a direction finder, really, as a compass.
Yeah, that's a really great way of putting it. And you've really just opened yourself up to these experiences, and you have put in the effort to actually make it happen. So that's inspiring to me, and I kind of hope that you can be an example for other people to, like we've been saying, we've been using this term, give yourself a chance, and you have to at least give yourself a chance to be happy. And I feel like you did, and it seems to be paying off.
Yeah, you got to believe it's worth it.
Yeah.
In order for you to put yourself into it. Otherwise, you're kind of putting energy somewhere else, trying to make sure that it will be okay, which is just you're convincing yourself that if I have this or that, then I'll be okay. But if you just say, if I am me and I just be me, whatever that is, because I can't understand it, then, well, it's just going to change anyways. So is it good now? And what does that say about where you're at and whether you want to feel that in the next moment?
One of the things that I like the most about you is that you are very philosophical. So I'm glad that our listeners can get a taste of that. It's been really great having you around, and I've gained a lot by having you here, and you always have thought-provoking things to say, and even just your sense of humor kind of makes me think, which is good. It keeps me on my toes for sure, and it makes, yeah, in a good way. It pushes me to kind of, yeah, just think, see things with a new perspective.
I do try to expand perspectives.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't try that hard. Sometimes I wish I didn't, but it just happens to come out whatever the heck I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, I would say that brings us to the present. The workshop finished last week, and we've had this really beautiful 4 or 5 days of just a group. Unfortunately, it's getting smaller day by day. We're the only ones left at this point. But again, you've been a huge part of that, and that's really my dream long term, is to be able to have people around in this community setting. It's felt really effortless for me. Everyone's just kind of pitching in and making meals. One day someone's cooking, the other day, someone's doing the dishes or just relaxing. I want people to have time to relax out here and not really do anything. So, yeah, I don't know what the future will hold. I was going to say, it would be sort of out of character to ask me what you're going to do next, I guess, if you're just sort of focused on the present.
I wouldn't have much to tell you.
You can't answer that question, I guess.
Yeah.
But is there any other reflections on your journey you'd like to share with us, or anything I left out? And saying no is acceptable.
I mean, no is not the answer, but what to say? It's like, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's just walking around with an empty mind almost. And then things happen, and you can't really go through a short conversation and try to have everything come up. I guess, how much do I want to explain?
Yeah.
Right. It's like,
yeah.
maybe I want to explain everything, and I don't
Yeah.
know how. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to say the first thing that pops off the top of my head, because that doesn't explain everything, right? But so I guess that's what I have to say.
Fair enough. Well, Peter, thank you so much for joining and telling at least part of your experience and a small part of what you've gotten out of it. And I'm happy that we're sitting here together, and I'm happy that you have made some courageous decisions and accepted the uncertainty and the hard times, and that's made this possible. So,
well, thank you for the opportunity to show myself what I'm capable of, and do that for a cause that just makes sense.
Yeah.
At least just for somebody who appreciates it. Frankly.
Yeah. That's all going to come back around and benefit me too. And I have benefited a lot from meeting you a few months ago and spending a lot of significant life moments with you over the past few weeks.
I feel the same. Yeah.
Great. Well, I wish you the best on your journey, wherever that ends up taking you. And all I can say is thanks. And
It's gratitude. That's all it comes down
Yeah.
to. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you
of course.
for everything you've done.
Yeah. Well, that's it for this episode, and stay tuned for more.